How much do you feel that you know about the war we are fighting in Afghanistan?
Fair amount.
How much do you feel you know about the war we are fighting in Afghanistan?
I know a little bit about the war that we're fighting in Afghanistan.
How much do you feel that you know about the war we are fighting in Afghanistan?
I don't know anything.
How much do you feel that you know about the war we are fighting in Afghanistan?
I think that I know quite a bit about it.
What are your views on our involvement in the war?
I think we should be involved because we were attacked with no provocation, and I think you have to defend yourself.
What are your views on our involvement in the war?
I think all democratic societies should be involved with fighting wars such as this. I feel that it's necessary for us to be there. On the other hand, I wish there were more countries that would also become more involved.
What are your views on our involvement in the war?
I think that we are in Afghanistan too much.
What are your views on our involvement in the war?
I think it's unfortunate that we had to go in there, but I do think that there was a necessity for us to go there, or it's becoming a lot more drawn out than I thought it would. And I think that if you give them a date of departure for our troops, then I think that gives the enemy a fair advantage, or gives them extra ammunition to plan their next moves.
Where do you get most of your information that you learn about?
From the news.
Where do you get most of the information that you learn about the war?
In newspapers, on television, news reports, and on the internet.
Where do you get most of the information that you learn about the war?
On the computer and on the news.
Where do you get most of your information that you learn about the war?
Newspapers and television news.
What are some questions you have about the war in Afghanistan?
Why are we still there?
What are some questions you have about the war in Afghanistan?
I think the questions that I have are mostly the kind of questions that most people have. How long is it going to last? I think President Obama said either 2013 or 2014 we'd be out of Afghanistan. I'm hoping that that's the case. We've had some really long-standing wars, and it's time to bring our boys home.
What are some questions you have about the war in Afghanistan?
I don't have any.
What are some questions you have about the war in Afghanistan?
Exactly, not exactly, but when we will be exiting the war. I mean, it seems like it's an ongoing thing, and I think that maybe they should involve more troops.
Do you have any personal connections to someone fighting in the war?
No.
Do you have any personal connections to someone fighting in Afghanistan?
Not in Afghanistan, but I do have a grandson that was in Iraq, and he was in Iran. And my brother was a Marine and was wounded in Vietnam during the Vietnam era, and I had an uncle die in World War II when he was in his early 20s. But I do not have anybody presently in Afghanistan.
Do you have any personal connections to someone fighting in the war?
No.
Do you have any personal connections to someone fighting in the war?
Not any longer. My grandson was in Iraq, but he's home now. I don't have any personal relations who are over there.
Are you normally pro-war?
No.
Are you generally pro-war?
I don't think anybody's really pro-war. I think you have to, there's a certain amount of principles that you have to maintain for a democratic society. And sometimes it does lead to war, and you do have to fight. I am not one of these people that say, oh, let's just go to war, let's have a fight. It isn't my nature to do that. But there are times when we do have to stand up for what's right for society, and this is one of those times.
Are you generally pro-war? Do you generally support war?
No.
In general, are you pro-war?
No, I'm not. I'm not anti-war to the extent that I demonstrate against the war that the Congress or the President felt was necessary, but I'm definitely not pro-war. I don't think that's, I think even in Afghanistan, I think more efforts could be made in the diplomatic arena to come to maybe some agreement.
Do you think the U.S. is doing too much, too little, or just the right amount of work in Afghanistan?
Now I think it's too much.
Did you think it was the answer different earlier?
Yeah.
Do you think the U.S. is doing too much, too little, or just the right amount of work in Afghanistan?
From what little I know, and there is a lot of information, we're given a certain amount of information from the press, from the president, and there are a lot of secrets that we don't really know, which is for national security. But as far as I know, I think we're right on track for what our government is saying that we should be. And they have a lot of advice from the military people that are over there. So yeah, I think we're right on track. I don't think we're doing too much. I don't think we're doing too little. I think we're okay right now. And they make adjustments accordingly.
Do you think the U.S. is doing too much or too little in Afghanistan?
Too much.
Who are we fighting with?
Al-Qaeda and the Taliban.
Who are we fighting against in the war?
It's my understanding that we're fighting the Taliban and we're fighting Al-Qaeda.
Who are we fighting in this war?
I have no idea.
Who are we fighting against in this war?
Well, Al-Qaeda, Taliban, and these the revolutionaries who I think they're extremist Muslims.
What are the main reasons that we are fighting in this war?
Preserve our way of life.
What are the main reasons that we are fighting in this war?
Well, mainly I think to promote democracy, letting the people there have a democratic society, not as we know it, but certainly giving them the right to vote who they want in, and to have some sort of level of security in their home and their life.
What are the main reasons we are fighting in this war?
I don't know.
What are the main reasons that we are fighting in this war?
The main reasons, I suppose, would be to democratize the country, which maybe we're going about it the wrong way. I think I don't think you can force democracy on a country that's lived with a particular type of government that is not the same as ours, and I don't think we should be doing that. But in some instances, I think we're trying to impose democracy on countries that have, for many years, been oppressive and need to change. But I think there can be, and I keep harping back to the diplomatic avenue, but I think that should be used a lot more extensively than it has been.
Who is fighting alongside of us in this war?
I think it's France. I know it's France and England. I just don't know who else. Other NATO nations.
Who is fighting alongside us in the war?
I believe that's the United Kingdom, and NATO was, no, that was the Korea, sorry. I believe it's the United Kingdom, and I think it's that national alliance that I was talking about that was fighting in Afghanistan. I don't know how many other people are involved now. They're in and out of the war most of the time. They send some troops over, then they leave, so it's very difficult knowing who's, at least I don't know how many people are involved.
Who are we fighting with?
I have no idea.
Who are we fighting alongside of in this war?
NATO forces, I think some of them, I think the Italians and British, Germans, some of the NATO countries, I think they're somewhat reluctant on their part in many instances.